Thor Love and Thunder has officially released in theaters, so let's go ahead and talk about it. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Diz TV. If this is your first time here, welcome home. We're so glad to have you. And like I mentioned, Thor Love and Thunder has officially released. Let's go ahead and talk about the most recent addition to the MCU, starting now. So Thor Love and Thunder is the fourth installment of the Thor series. He is the first standalone superhero to receive 4 MCU movies. Of course, Avengers does have 4, but Thor is off on a very interesting journey in this movie as he's trying to find who he is after Endgame. And that's really where we start this movie off with. We see him with the Guardians of the Galaxy for a little bit, and we see him just trying to find himself. But he runs into a bit of problems, namely running into Jane Foster along with Mjolnir.
Jonathan?
This, of course, sets up the plot along with the Gore, the God Butcher, who is the villain of the story. He, of course, is on a vengeance quest to kill all the gods after he believes they have wronged him. This sets up, of course, a epic adventure with our heroes as they go to save the galaxy and save the universe from Gore's wrath. The story, it's good. It makes sense. It's very easy to follow. It is under 2 hours, so it is jam-packed, but at the same time, the story is simple, easy to remember, and you know it the entire way through. The thing I really enjoy about this movie is the character moments. Christian Bale does a phenomenal job as Gore the God Butcher. He's definitely one of the best villains in the MCU. Still think Thanos and Loki are arguably still some of the best, but I give Gore the God Butcher definitely top 5 villain status in the MCU. Chris Hemsworth, of course, does a fantastic job as Thor, as always. He's getting close to being potentially my favorite superhero in the MCU right now. It has been Captain America for the longest time, but Thor's getting ever so close to being in that number 1 spot for me. And Chris Hemsworth just does a phenomenal job portraying this character. Of course, the return of Natalie Portman as Jane Foster, aka the Mighty Thor, is definitely a standout here. She actually did a phenomenal job coming back into this character. Of course, we see her cancer storyline in this movie, and it's done very, very well. There are some heartfelt moments with that storyline, with that arc of her in the movie. Of course, Valkyrie and Korg are in this movie as well, and both are definitely good. They're definitely more of the comedy in this one, particularly Korg, as per usual. But overall, they're still phenomenal characters. Of course, you have some other new additions into this movie. Of course, the big one being Zeus, played by Russell Crowe, another DC Marvel crossover. And he does a fantastic job playing Zeus. Definitely a goofier version of Zeus than we've seen literally in any sort of medium of entertainment. I mean, I'm just trying to think of any. Of course, the big counter one with this is you have Zeus from the Disney animated movie Hercules, who's completely different, much more that, normal, calm presence of Zeus that we've come to see throughout cinema, and it's definitely a lot different. A lot different. If you have younger kids, I think you should hold off on this one. There's some things you'd have to explain later. Just saying. That is really the shining part of this, and Taika Waititi does a phenomenal job with nailing these characters, their arcs, and of course the character moments that we see in this movie. There is a really touching part about maybe 60% of the way through the movie. I don't know. But it's a really touching moment between Jane and Thor, and it is done very well. There's no extra humor really added to it, and it's really, really, really good. There is a lot of practical jokes in this, namely with Stormbreaker kind of having some fun with Thor. It's a different sense of humor. The thing with the humor, though, is it is dialed up to 11. If you thought Thor Ragnarok was funny, this is even funnier. I would say this is the funniest film in the MCU. It's a good thing, but also a bad thing. The hard part and the biggest flaw with this movie, in my personal opinion, is the contrast. You have Gore the God Butcher, which is one of the most deadliest villains in the MCU, a very terrifying villain, of course portrayed well by Christian Bale, and he does such a phenomenal job with it. But then you have the really goofy antics that we come to suspect with Taika Waititi films. They can mix, but to the extent where the funny was compared to where the dark was, it just felt very pulled. It definitely felt like there were two sides to the coin, and they couldn't find the right balance for it. And don't get me wrong, I still appreciate the jokes, I still love the humor of this movie, but ultimately I think if the funny parts of the movie were toned down just a bit, so you cut a few jokes and things, to balance out, I think you would have had a fantastic, phenomenal movie. That's really, to me, what I have a hard time with when it comes to this movie, is specifically just the extreme contrast between those two things. It works in some cases, but for most of it, it was okay. Of course, the other thing with this is there's a lot of heartfelt moments in this movie. It's surprising that the MCU has been, I think, really nailing these moments. You have Spider-Man No Way Home, where that was really heartfelt. That was absolutely done very, very well. And this, the same thing. It was done very well, and how they did those heartfelt moments really grasped it, really captured it, and held on to it, and it just worked. The ending to this movie was also really, really cool. There are 2 post-credit scenes in the movie, which was cool. The second one was just a little neat. I'm curious to see if anything comes about it. I doubt it, but it was still cool. The first one, though, is the most important one, because holy cow, that is going to be... I'm excited for it. You have to see it, but if you have seen it, you know what I'm talking about. Overall, did I enjoy the movie? Yes, I did. Did I have fun? I did. Was it absolutely bonkers? Yes, the MCU is going in 50 billion different bonkers directions. As the MCU grows and expands, we get weirder stories, and this is that. I love the comic references here and there that are, plugged in throughout this movie. I love a good amount of the jokes. I love the dark and seriousness tones of the movie. I love the heartfelt moments. It really is an enjoyable movie. While it does contrast a decent amount in terms of funny and dark, it is still, at the end of the day, a classic Thor adventure. And that's what I like about it. Thor is becoming one of those characters that is going to and has appealed to audiences, and I think Thor has really redeemed himself in terms of his own movies. We've got 2 really good movies compared to the 2 pretty good movies. So overall, I give this movie an 8.8 out of 10 with a fun factor of an A+. That's all I have for you guys today. So thank you all so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please give it a big thumbs up. I greatly appreciate it. And if you're new to the channel, be sure to subscribe down below and hit the bell to be notified for more videos on Disney, Pixar, Marvel, Star Wars, the parks, and so much more. I'll see you all in the next video. Have a marvelous day. Goodbye. Also, Guns N' Roses will get stuck in your head.